Greetings. Welcome to I Have a Testimony. I'm your host, Brother Willie Muhammad.
God came to us to seek and to save that which was lost. He raised a man from among us.
He, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, laid the foundation. What I'm doing is something that comes from him through me, and the thing that he uses in me to do the work is my faith in him and the word that he taught. To produce men and women who wanted to clean up their life and build an independent nation for the glory of God.
Today, we are blessed to have a personal story and testimony of a very talented musician. He's a jazz violinist, Mr. Michael Ward. Michael Ward is one of the few instrumental musicians who have chosen to play jazz on violin. He has performed with some of the world's top entertainers throughout his career, including Wynton Marsalis, Lionel Hampton, Ronnie Laws, L. Hurt, and Najee, to name a few. He has been documented on more than 50 different recordings, covering several styles from jazz to blues, country, and zydeco, Cajun pop, and hip hop. All three releases, Just Me, Laid Back, and Make a Wish, were featured in Downbeat and Jazz Times magazine. And we thank you for accepting the invitation, my brother. Appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, sir. And I'd like to get straight to the actual the interviews. In my research, I began to start researching about you and your music. So can you share with the audience, when did your interest in the violin actually began? Because I know you started off with piano, right?
Yeah. It's a funny story with the violin. I come from a jazz family. My mother was a jazz and classical gospel singer. So when I was going to the 6th grade, she wanted me to learn how to read music, and she told me to take the orchestra class, and they would teach me how to read piano music. But when I got in the class, they didn't teach piano; it was all strings. So I decided I was going to go get in the band and play a saxophone, a trumpet, or something. And the band was full, and I had to stay in the orchestra. So I figured I'd just stay until I can get into the band. And my teacher said, "You got to pick an instrument." And I just went any, mini, mighty, mo and picked the violin. And I've been playing it ever since.
Wow.
10 years old when I started. Violin.
Wow. It's something. And now we know that you play you're playing a violin, but it's kind of a different type of violin. So how did you make the transition from playing the traditional violin to now playing the electric violin? Wow, looks like our guest has disconnected, having some difficulty. So we're going to reach out to him to get him back on. So just give us one moment, brothers and sisters. So as he gets ready to log back on, he is a violinist, a jazz violinist, and he has a very interesting story, a testimony about his interaction with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I don't want to give you the story. If he doesn't log back in, I guess I actually will, but we're going to send him some text messages to let him know he needs to log back in. 1 second. So yeah, he's from the city of New Orleans, and there he is. He's back. We're going to work through the technicalities. So the question I was asking you, so what's the difference between, or how did you make the transition from playing the traditional violin to the electric violin?
Well, I didn't start playing electric violin until I got to Southern University. Prior to that, it was strictly classical. And then when I wanted to get into jazz, my instructor, Alvin Baptiste, he said, "Why don't you play jazz?" I saw no future in classical music, no financial future. So I got into jazz at Southern University. And because I'm playing with so many loud instruments, the acoustic violin just is not going to work. So I bought my first violin. That's, oh my God, years and years ago. Throughout the years, I've had endorsement deals with several different companies. But now the violin that I play now is a custom-made violin made by a company out in Northern California called Jordan violins, and I'm on my fourth violin. In fact, my first violin was a custom-made blue violin, which was always my color. That violin, I ended up giving it as a gift to Minister Farrakhan on the Tom Joyner cruise.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that later. But wow, that's something. So how would you explain to the untrained ear like myself the difference between sonically between the traditional violin and the electric violin?
The biggest, greatest thing is that you can plug it into a sound system. You can manipulate the sound with acoustics like reverb and delay, and then it doesn't have feedback. So when you play acoustic violin, you're playing into a microphone, and sometimes it feeds back. My electric violins never feed back, so it's a big advantage, and I can turn it up as loud as I want it to be throughout the course of all of my musicians that's playing behind me. So it's a big advantage. It has changed the way that I play, because I play acoustic violin totally different from the way I play electric violin, because you have to approach it in a totally different way. So it's made me change my way of playing.
Wow, that's something. And I know from your from reading about you, you're actually a San Antonio native. And I guess the way you ended up how did you come to reside in the city of New Orleans?
Like I said, I went to Southern University in Baton Rouge, loved that Louisiana cooking, and I wanted to be close to New Orleans. And, Baton Rouge is about an hour away. So after coming out of Southern University, I just moved on down here to New Orleans, and I've been here close to 40 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
How would you say New Orleans is a very cultural city in regards to the food, the culture, but also the music? How has the actual musical flavor here in the city influenced how you play?
Well, the one good thing about New Orleans is that all of the older guys, we were college kids, and they encouraged you to come sit in. Every Sunday they had a jam session, and they encouraged us to come sit in and play. And then they'll tell you what to go back and work on. So when you come back the following week, they can tell if you practice or if you didn't practice. And that was a good thing. But the music here is so different. That's what I love about the city of New Orleans. They've always had their own culture, their own music. I mean, jazz was born right here. And these musicians have a totally different feel when they're playing. And then we go around the world, and you tell somebody you're a musician from New Orleans, and they go crazy because you're New Orleans musicians. Then these guys are really some great musicians, young and old. I mean, I remember Trombone Shorty when he was 7 years old. Now he's a major star in the industry. And it's so many other people that I've had the opportunity to play with, like Harry Connick Jr. and just so many people. But the music and the food kind of has something to do with that too now. But the brass music, the second line music, the jazz, all of that is like a melting pot, especially in the New Orleans funk. It's totally different from anybody else's funk.
Wow.
And then, that's a melting pot and a recipe for nothing but good stuff.
Wow. And then quickly before we go into our first break, how was it playing with the Lionel Hamptons and the Wynton Marsalisses? The Wynton Marsalis.
Well, when I played with Lionel, he was really, really old, very old. But he was still playing. And I didn't play with him long. But now Wynton Marsalis, that we did a record called Blood on the Fields. And it was the first record. Did it go out again? Did it go out?
Your camera went out, but we can still hear you. You can keep talking until we get to the break.
We did Blood on the Fields with Wynton Marsalis, which was a big, big suite that he wrote. And we won the first Pulitzer Prize in jazz with that album. And Wynton is definitely one of the he's a genius, put it like that. He's a total genius. When he's writing, when he's playing, he's flawless. And it was just a great thrill to be able to play with him. So I had a good time.
Yes, sir. Okay, so we're approaching our first break, and we're going to pause from some announcements and we'll work on those camera issues as well. And thank you all for tuning in, and we'll pause for these brief announcements.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps us to highlight solutions for a brighter tomorrow. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Asiatic Minds, online education, helping our children to discover their God-given skills, gifts, talents, and passion that will allow them to see their greatness, as well as the greatness of our people, and upon discovering that greatness, infusing them with the desire to use it for the betterment of themselves, their families, our people, and the world. Call now, 502-219-4848.
This is Sister Sajda Muhammad. We are proud to announce that the Sajda House commemorative Elijah coins are finally here. This priceless heirloom, made from recycled copper from the messenger's home, is now available at sajdahouse.com.
The hashtag Bank Black social media campaign made strides not only in revolutionizing how we bank, but also how we think. The movement inspired thousands of African Americans across the country to transfer or deposit millions of dollars into Black-owned banks. These are banks that will invest in urban communities, employ African Americans, support Black businesses, and inspire Black home ownership. This is a very proud moment for our culture as we are taking small, but significant, steps towards building Black power through Black wealth.
Thank you for tuning in to NNV News. Please share your thoughts with us in the comments section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, National Network View. This is Clifton Muhammad with nnvnews.com.
In addition to playing the jazz violin, Mr. Ward also takes his time to educate people about his journey as a musician and playing the violin and about music as overall.
Michael Ward made a nursery rhyme sound jazzy for these students at Sam Houston High School.
I heard an amazing violinist. I've never heard someone play like that.
Hearing music like this, for some, was a first.
I've never heard an electric violin before. I've never even seen a violinist before.
Much less one who graduated from their school, with the band director was a student here.
I saw this gentleman perform in high school, and I was blown away by his talent.
That violin took me away from here. Not that I didn't want to be here, but it took me around the world.
So, you know, I came across this article, and you actually said it in the actual video. You spoke about how the violin took you away from where you were in San Antonio, and how it has allowed you to travel all around the world. So can you elaborate on how the violin has helped you take you from San Antonio, and what are some of the favorite places around the world that you've had the ability to perform in?
Oh my God. I guess Brazil would definitely be at the top of my list. I've been all over Japan, South Africa. We just did South Africa, and prior to that, we did in India. But I've been Brazil. I've been to Japan, all over Europe, Italy, France, and of course Canada and Mexico and Australia. It's like being in the military, you know, where you get to see the world. Well, I've got to see the world, and it didn't cost me my money. It paid me to go see these countries. And you know, it's been I used to love traveling. I'm a little older now, so my travel days are really kind of behind me. I'm not traveling as much, but I still enjoy traveling. And then I take my son out. I have a son, Sean Ward. Me, him, and Ronnie Laws and his son Jamin, we went to Italy as a father-son tour 2 years back, and we had a great time. And my son's been touring with me for years, since he was probably 14, 13 years old.
Wow.
Now he's doing his own thing. He's got his own CDs. Because I saw that you said I got 3 CDs, but I really have 6 CDs.
Okay.
I have 3 after that, which is After the Kiss, the best of. And then my son's on his 4th CD, and we're working on a record right now together.
Wow, that's good.
So it's, it's been great. I have a 10-year-old son too, by the way.
Wow.
And he's playing, and he's studying with the Ellis Marcellus Academy, which is Wynton Marcellus's father's school.
Yes, sir.
Ellis just passed away not long ago, but my 10-year-old's there, and he's advanced. He's killing them, and I'm proud of him.
That's good.
But the music has took me all over the country. I got friends all over the world. I get to see, I've seen everything. I've been to the Taj Mahal, and I've been to the Roman Colosseum and the Great Wall of China. Yeah, I got to see those things, which I probably would never, ever have been able to go see without this violin.
That's something.
The dedication that I had to learning my skills and practicing. So I got lucky.
That's good. That's a blessing to be able to, be able to see that and even experience that with your son. In an article I also read, because you do a lot of educating around the violin when you were asked to speak in schools, as it showed in the clip, you talked about how the fiddle and how it was used by our ancestors on the plantation. So was like the fiddle like an early version of the violin, and how is that connected, on the plantation?
First of all, the fiddle and the violin is the same instrument. It depends on what kind of money you pay me. You can call it what you want. It's the same instrument. But here's what happened with the fiddle. In slavery days, in early slavery days, Africans came, when they got here, they had percussive instruments. Well, the slave owner gave them a violin. He didn't give them no book how to learn how to play violin. So one slave, he would play it, learn how to play it, and learn a few things. And then when he passed it down to his son, usually it was the son, he would teach him what he knew, and then the son would take it to the next level. And then that son would pass it down to his son. And it just started progressing and progressing. But they started playing, we call it fiddle music. And over the years, it just evolved and got better and better. And then after that, we went to ragtime, where Scott Joplin always used violins in his music. And the early days of jazz in New Orleans, they were called string bands. They weren't called jazz bands because they always had 1 or 2 violin players. And this is the late 1800s. They always had violin players in the band. So they were called string bands. But then the brass instruments started getting so heavy and loud, you couldn't hear the violin. So they phased the violins out.
Wow.
Now we got young kids. When I was starting out, it wasn't too many, especially blacks, playing violin. We had Noel Pointer, who I kind of learned from Noel Pointer and John Blake, but Stuff Smith is back with Duke Ellington and all those guys.
Wow.
And now these kids are using violin on hip hop and everything. I'm always seeing violin players doing new and innovative stuff.
Wow.
I got stuck in my ways, so I can't. I ain't doing the hip hop stuff, but we got some great violinists out there. We got a young lady in Atlanta. We got Ken Ford in Atlanta too. Great violinist.
That's something. Well, I came across where you describe your musical style as contemporary instrumental urban music, right?
Yeah.
So can you explain that?
Well, like when I played with Marcellus, we play a lot of straight ahead jazz. Me, I started out playing, we call it smooth jazz, but I think I do more funk and R&B type jazz. I still do a lot of jazz, but I still do a lot of funk and a lot of R&B stuff on my shows in my band. Because to me, it's a lot more fun, and it sells more music. It sells more.
Wow, that's something. And but I know even with your style and using the electric violin as well, I would imagine that there are some of these up and coming artists who are familiar with you, because when we talk about violins in the city, your name always comes up. So I'm quite sure that you are influencing some of the newer generation as well. Like example is with your son,
Yeah, you gotta, I get a lot of mentions. This group, Black Strings, I think they're out of Florida. A lot of young violinists, have heard of me and they've studied my music. I mean, it makes me proud that I was able to set a legacy, because in New Orleans, nobody had ever heard of electric violin when I got here.
That's a fact.
And I had to make it myself. I didn't have, like my son, he has me.
Yeah.
I paved the way, but nobody paved the way for me. And I had to play them ballrooms and just knock it out and keep grinding until I was able to get a break. And it finally happened.
Especially in the city where that is known for the brass instruments, that is known for the second line, the drum, the trumpet. You know what I'm saying? To be able to carve your lane with that, right? What are some of the things that you did just to really, to get your name out there?
Well, I started this little ballroom called Pampy's, and it was a little ballroom.
Yeah.
That's the ballroom that gave me my break in New Orleans. We played there every Sunday. It was packed every Sunday. And I played there for like 6 years. And, my biggest thing is please the crowd. If the crowd is happy with what you're doing, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And here in New Orleans, they started coming. I'm like, well, man, I'm on to something. And I just kept on progressing into what I was doing until I started finally recording and traveling and doing all that kind of stuff.
Wow, Pampy's, that very popular club when it was actually open. And you talked about that in regards to, not if something is working as a performer, you use it, right? I've had the opportunity to go to some performances and I've seen vocal artists who have a catalog of music, but they're like not singing or doing the things that has caused people to love them, and it kind of takes away from their performance. So in addition, can you share some more of the secret to stage performances?
Well, one thing, you can have the best musician on the planet, but he's not a band leader. Everybody cannot, and it's not meant to be band leaders. I know some musicians that'll blow me out the water, but they stand there and they just straight and they just playing. They're so serious. It's like, man, you got to interact with the crowd. You got to give them a show. They don't want to just hear you play. They want to see you play. And that's what I've always done in all of my performances, is because I guess being a leader, it was always in me to be a leader. And I've always been a band leader. I never want to play in somebody else's band, because you're a sideman and people forget about you. They tend to forget. Well, for me, it's a little different because they're like, oh, they had a violin player up there. But I never want to be a sideman. I always want to be the band leader, the head of the band. I call the shots and I pay the bills.
Yes, sir. And you talked about in all of the places that you have played that Brazil stands just one of your favorite. What made Brazil what makes your performances there so special?
Well, let me tell you, out of all the cities I've been to in the world, Brazil is like New Orleans. They have their own food. They have their own culture, which is rich. A lot of slaves stopped in Brazil before they came up here. And their culture is incredible. And I just enjoy the people there. They're just wonderful people. They remind me of people in New Orleans. Southern hospitality, that's kind of like Brazil. But most importantly, I love the music down there. And I had once thought about moving down there. I went over there with Billy Paul, me and Mrs. Jones. And Billy Paul was down and we played together. And Billy Paul ended up moving down there. I think he might have passed away while living in Brazil. And that was 26 years ago.
Wow. Thank you for that. So we're approaching our next break. And for those who are just tuning in, we're here with jazz violinist Michael Ward, and we'll be back to hear more of his testimony after these public announcements.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
worldwide, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download the Final Call Radio app and take us everywhere. On your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also log on to finalcall.com and click the Listen Live button, or finalcallradio.com. Final Call Radio, the official voice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam.
Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel at National Network View. I am Anissa Muhammad with NNVnews.com.
On May 11th of this year, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan gifted the world with a free viewing of his world premiere of his Beethoven Violin Concerto performance. You know, so Mr. Ward, my first time actually physically meeting you was while we were filming a part of the New Orleans bounce rapper Big Freedia was doing a documentary on violence. And it was there that you shared with me that you first met the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan while you were on the Tom Joyner's cruise. So can you talk about that?
Well, here's the thing. I was playing. We was playing in one of the decks. I don't remember. And we was rolling. We was rocking and rolling. I'm gonna tell you, we was playing. We was hot that night, and I felt this presence on the stage. And I'm sitting there like, who in the world is this next to me, standing over me like this? Open my eyes, and it's the minister. And he's looking at the fingerings that I'm doing and the way I'm playing. I'm like, oh Lord. And then the camera started going crazy, and everybody taking pictures. And so we spoke briefly that night because I still was in my performance. But the next morning, I get a call in my cabin, saying, Minister wants to know if you could spare some of your time. So he wants to spend, he wants to talk with you. That night, I went up to his cabin, and we sat down for about 2.5, 3 hours, talking about strictly music and other things. It was a pleasant conversation. But he kept asking me about my violin, the blue. I always carry 2 violins. And so he kept asking me about my blue violin, which that one is a 4-string, which is like a regular violin, like the one he plays, but electric. I play a blue 4-string, but I normally play a 5-string violin, which is like a viola violin put together. But so I called my company that built the violin because I was going to see if I can get him one made. And the guy that owns the company said, man, give him the blue one. I'll make the other one. And so that next morning, I didn't have a case to give. I didn't have a case to give it to him with because I needed the case for my other violin. I gave him that violin. He wrapped it up in a towel. When he walked off the boat, Tom Joyner stopped him and said, Minister, what is that? He said, this is Michael Ward's violin. I'm taking it home. And he's had it ever since.
Wow. So that was one. So you gifted him one of the electric violin. Yeah. Wow. So I know when the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan a couple of weeks ago did the world premiere on his 88th anniversary, I sent you the link. I don't know if you had the opportunity to check it out. What were your thoughts just about his overall performance?
I already knew he could play because he had played earlier that week on the Tom Joyner cruise. I never thought I would get a chance to meet him and no less befriend him because we've spoken many times since that incident. But he practices like for real practices. He practiced more than I practice, that's for sure.
Wow.
And because I told him, man, be careful with that electric violin because his tone is immaculate on acoustic violin. His tone is incredible. And I like, be careful with that electric violin because it'll tend to make you get lazy and you'll start losing your tone. But he can really, really play. He's not no violin, novice violinist. He's serious about his craft. And we've spoken about this many, many times about him practicing. And he's always asking me, well, what do you practice on? Not classical anymore. I don't see no money in it. The last time I played acoustic violin was when I played with Wynton Marsalis years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's something. And also while we were actually there, you talked about how, you're from the city of New Orleans and you experienced the unfortunate natural disaster of Hurricane Katrina, but you shared with me something that I had no idea about, how the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, his offer of kindness to you. Can you talk about that?
Well, my family and I we were displaced like everybody else. And he said, Mike, you and your family come up here if you want. I was like, Minister, I need to be close to New Orleans. I got to be close to New Orleans, see what's going on. And so I went to Houston. He said, don't do nothing until you call me. And he took, he helped me out. He gave me help for me get an apartment in Houston for 6 months. He paid for it. And therefore I was able to recover. And, I was so deeply and grateful for him for being so kind and offering that. He didn't have to do that. Wow. So he's just a wonderful man, to be honest with you. And I'm not talking about his religious side. I'm talking about as a person, period.
Yeah.
I've never talked religion with him, to be very honest with you. And he loves me and he loves Frankie Beverly. And I know that much. And we've never talked religion. I haven't spoken with him in a while because I know he got sick at one point, and he's a busy man.
Definitely, man. And that's the thing. And just like what you said, he's a beautiful human being, man. And it's amazing. I know some people who are part of his team when they move and travel in different places, and I asked him, was the minister still, speaking and doing these numerous speaking engagements while he was preparing for that performance that was done nearly almost 19 years ago? And they said that even while he was preparing for this very significant performance, he was still doing these lectures, still speaking around the country and nonstop. But they said he would get up early in the morning and he'll be on that violin for hours, just practicing.
Well, here's the funny thing. One day I get a call, and I know he's so busy, but I get a call, and he's in a music store. I don't know where he was, and he said, "Michael, those pedals that I use a sustain pedal, I use a delay pedal, a couple of pedals on my violin." So he's like, "Well, what are those pedals you use?" And I started explaining to him. He said, "I don't know what you're saying. Tell this man." He gave it to the guy at the store, and I don't know if he bought them or not, but he wanted to use the same pedals that I was using, so he put it on the blue violin, on the blue violin.
The one you were talking about, the one that you gifted him, and you talked about. Can you explain for those listeners, even with myself, you were talking about the tone and how you was telling him about the tone? Be careful. Can you talk more about that?
Well, see, when you have an acoustic violin, that's pure tone. When you pulling that violin and stroking it, you gotta get that vibrato going. You gotta really have a smooth, nice stroke. I used to have that when I played classical, but when you go to electric violin, I got lazy and started cheating because you don't have to do it as hard because you got help. I got pedals and delays and all of that stuff, and that's what I've gotten used to over the last 40 years or so. So if I played acoustic violin now, it definitely wouldn't sound as good as the ministers at all. I wouldn't even be in that league. Maybe one time when I was young, I was close to that league, but I've never sounded that good on my violin ever. So the electric violin tends to make you cheat. That's what I'm gonna put the word cheat.
Yeah.
What I've been doing, cheating for years.
But you're good at your style. And really, like, I hear the classical violin and I hear it, but I really love the type of music that is that violinists such as you play in regards with the violin, the jazz, sometimes it's hip hop and different things like that, right? And that to me, I like that because I guess I can relate more to the music. I know the music that is being played in the violin. And what do you find that as well, that people tend to be, I guess in New Orleans and all around, tend to be more pulled to that type of, to the classical music or just the contemporary music played on?
I'm gonna tell you what I love. I love when I go to a new city and never been there, or I love when people who have never heard me, and I have fans tell me all the time, man, they wanted me to come see you, and I didn't want to go hear nobody play no violin because they have no clue. And then they come to my show and they were like, man, I never heard that before. And I love that, especially when I go out of town, like I was in South Africa, and I know there are not too many violinists over in South Africa. We did a big festival over there. Man, we played 3 nights. The first night was packed. Second night, twice as packed. The third night, couldn't get in. Wow. Because people are not used to hearing it. And I love when I go sit in with guys who never heard of me. Ooh, that's so much fun. Because they look at me like, you can't play this kind of music on violin. I say, okay, give me a shot. And then I rip it up. I love it because then you meet new musicians, and I just love the music world, I love musicians. I don't care for the bars and the clubs too much anymore at my at old age. So I'm booking more concerts and festivals. And, like I said, I hate airports now. I used to love airplanes and airports and hotels. Now, I just played a concert in Biloxi the other night, Friday night. When I finish, I'm leaving. They got a nice hotel room for me at the IP, one of the casino hotel. I don't need the room. It's only an hour away. I got off that stage. I was home in an hour and 15 minutes. Wow. I don't like being in hotels. I like being home with my family. I got a beautiful wife and 2 beautiful kids, and that's where I want to be.
How have you ever had the opportunity to play at the Jazz Fest here in New Orleans? I know it's such a big festival.
I did Jazz Fest 32 years in a row. 32 years. I did the first 10 years of the Essence Music Festival.
Wow.
So I've done Jazz Fest every year since 1984, I think it was.
Wow.
Yeah. So every year.
And are you looking for, hopefully, I know I just saw here where they were talking about students are going to start coming back to school on next year. So I would imagine that's going to open up for more festivals, and some festivals are coming back here in the city. Are you looking forward to the return of the Jazz Fest?
Oh yeah, most definitely. That's Jazz Fest is another venue that really helped my career get my name out there to the multi people, multi-millions of people, because a lot of people from all over the world come down here for the New Orleans Jazz Fest. It's one of the top festivals in the country, if not in the world. And so now when I go to other cities, people remember me from New Orleans Jazz Fest, and then they bring busloads of people out to the show. So it was definitely a major stay and will always be a major part of my career. So I ain't never leaving it.
And this is interesting in regards to I always find it just beautiful how music crosses colors, it crosses regions, and just it connects people. I guess you've seen that through your playing as well.
Oh, I've experienced it. I was in Italy. I was touring with a 32-piece big band. Everybody in the band only spoke Italian. There was one person that spoke English, and he was kind of like my caretaker. But we got along. We did we toured from North Italy all the way to Southern Italy. We had so much fun, even though we couldn't speak the same language. The music was our crossover, and we spoke the music well. And if I had to say something, they translated and I translated, but we still had fun. We went out to little pubs and stuff and drank that Italian, whatever they got. But we had a ball, even though we didn't speak the same language. And I loved it, And that's when I really realized that music is the center of everything. No matter what it is, music is going to be the center of it and make everybody happy.
And it's connected to so many major moments in our life as human beings as well. So we're coming up on our last break, and we're here with our brother, jazz violinist, Mr. Michael Ward, and we'll be back after these announcements.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps to combat false media. Cash App NNV News.
Greetings from National Network View. This week's Final Call cover story headline memorializes the late, great DMX. Last week, DMX's life was celebrated at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Large crowds gathered to honor the legend. They were there to remember a man who wasn't afraid to express his pain with the world. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan spoke via Zoom to the large audience. He delivered words of comfort, wisdom, and guidance to everyone under the sound of his voice. DMX will live on. This FCM volume number 29 edition features the middle page article is a transcript of what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said at the memorial. To read more, subscribe to finalcalldigital.com and tune in to the all-new Final Call Radio. This is the NNVnews.com Final Call cover report.
He anointed our head with oil till our cup runneth over. He who, Master Farrakhan Muhammad, that is he.
The love for the violin has also passed down to Mr. Ward's his sons, as he spoke about earlier in the actual interview. And here is a clip of Mr. Ward playing violin with his oldest son, Sean Ward. And I see, as we talked about with your son and your youngest son. So how does that feel, man? You know, to see them picking up the violin.
Oh, you couldn't be more proud. You know, I just did a function last week. We had my wife graduated from Southern, of course, you know, and we threw a big party. And there was a moment where I had all three of my sons on stage. Sean was on violin. Cortez was on violin. My youngest one was singing, and my grandson was on drums. I had all wards on stage at the same time. You could be more proud. And with my Sean, like I say, he's doing more things than I'm doing. He's really got his stuff together. He's writing. We're working on a song that he's writing and producing that is ridiculously bad, and I just can't wait to finish it. But our schedules are just so crazy that we don't get a chance to work together as much as we want to. So, but I love it. I mean, you can't be prouder.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing, because there's just another way to bond as a father and a son and as a family. So my next question to you would be, what advice would you give to young violinists who are classically trained but may have a desire to play another musical form with the string instrument like you have done and are doing?
Well, one is do what I did. I started listening to a lot of violinists like Jean-Luc Ponty, Stefan Grappelli, Noah Pointer, John Blake, who played with Grover Washington. I started listening to those guys. That gave me an idea and a foundation of what to grow on, you know, and start transitioning. And that helped me quite a bit. But then the bottom line is you got to get out there and play. You know, you got to get them ballrooms, even though I'm tired and too old to play them, you got to go get in them ballrooms and get you a regular gig, so that you can learn the different transitions and learn how to get the feeling that you want. Because my son Sean, I used to always jump on him about playing just like me. And he did for so long. And I used to always get on him, man, you sound too much like me. I can't take you on the road because we sound alike. So now he's got his own style, his own thing, and he's doing great. Now my 10-year-old, he's at school. I don't want to teach him. I want somebody else to teach him so he doesn't make the mistakes I did with Sean. So he's studying with somebody else. I mean, eventually I'm gonna have to, get with him, but I'm waiting for him to get his skills up to par where he's ready to transition. I want him to learn classical music first. That's what I did in San Antonio Youth Symphony and the San Antonio Youth Philharmonic, the Minneapolis Youth Symphony. I played classical music. That's all I did. But coming from Texas, I know I play country and western. I actually have a couple of country and western songs in my show that freak people out. And then, blues. I played a lot of blues with a lot of different blues artists. So the blues is nothing for me. And then my mom sang blues too. So, but you just got to get out there and listen to other people. Listen to my music, but don't play like me. Listen to what I'm doing. And they got other people that's better than me, and they play differently. Put it like this: we all play good, but we all have different styles. So don't just stick to one style. Listen to several violinists and put all our styles together and make it your style. And that's what I'm doing now.
Now I know you talked about like I guess it's the different genres of music. There's like the blues, there's the hip hop, there's the R&B, there's the country. As an artist, what would you say is there like a top genre of music you like to play?
I like doing what I do, of course. I love playing the smooth jazz funk thing.
Yeah.
That's what I do. That's what I love doing it. I like playing blues, but blues I get bored. Because you're playing the same 4 or 5 chords every night, and you don't get a chance to stretch out and do some creative things. So I'll play the blues, but I play Cajun music. I like playing all kind of music. I love when I play with different artists and different genres because it makes me think differently. Like if I'm playing country and western, my approach is totally different from my jazz approach. And same with if I play like Dixieland music, like we do here. It's a different approach. So you got to learn all the different approaches that go along with the style of music that you're playing. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to learn different styles. And I'm listening to Cajun fiddle players, so I listen to what they're doing. And then I get I meet a lot of them, and they know me. I know them. We just never met, and then when we finally meet, we want to study together. Teach me how you did that Cajun thing. They were like, well, teach me how you did that jazz thing. And I had a chance to meet Charlie Daniels years back, and I was playing Devil Went Down to Georgia then. And that opening lick, I was playing it, but it was struggling. It was killing me. And me and Charlie Daniels, we met, and I said, well, man, how do you do the opening lick? He showed me another way of fingering it, which made it so much easier. I was like, oh my God. That's all I had to do was change the way I fingered it, and I could play it just like him, opposed to me struggling to get it. But that's the thing about studying with other people, studying with other musicians, studying with other violinists. You get a chance, ask questions. I'm always available for anybody because that's what I do when I travel. I make it a point to go to a school after the show. Like if I'm leaving out Monday, give me an evening flight. I'll go to a school in the inner city. I don't go to these Catholic schools or these private school. I want to go to the inner city and teach these kids what the violin can actually do. And I don't charge nobody anything. I show up, I do a little quick workshop, and then normally I leave there and I'm going to the airport to go home.
Wow, that's beautiful. Yeah. How would viewers who are watching this interview how can they find your music online and even purchase your music?
Amazon has it. Oh my God, Spotify, yeah. Then you get all my videos on YouTube. I got several YouTube videos.
Yes, sir.
And then I don't really. Online, michaelward.com.
Okay, your website, michaelward.com. That's the way you can. Now, like I've heard, like for us entertainers, actors, actresses, I know at some point in their experience, like there's a performance that they did where it was just phenomenal, right? What if there is if you can, what was like just one of your most memorable performances and why?
Ooh, that's hard. Ooh, that's real hard. I think one of my best performances was in France, Villeneuve, France. I don't know, it was in the air that night, and we rocked it, and we played. Everybody in the band was listening. Everybody was in the pocket, and we just rocked it. And I'll never forget that performance. But I've had many different ones that I could say, ooh, that was my best performance yet. Because I can tell you a whole lot about my worst performances. It's a lot more there than my best.
Wow. Well, man, listen, we appreciate, my brother, that you gave us this opportunity to appear on the show. We appreciate it. And we ask all of those who are actually watching to have the opportunity to go to michaelward.com and support our brother and the music that he's doing. And if he's ever in your city, please make sure that you take the time out. I had a little computer issue. Make sure that you take the time out to support him. But thank you, Mr. Ward. We appreciate your time. We appreciate what you share with us. And I'll definitely keep my ears and eyes open for any new music that are coming out by you and your son.
All right. Thanks for having me. And it's a pleasure being here.
Yes, sir. Have a nice day. And for those who are watching, once again, we thank you all for tuning in. And we ask that you all continue to support NNV News, Network View News. Make sure that you support. As I always point out, we're showing here that on the slide, we're still in the process of working to pay off our building here in the city of New Orleans. Those funds that we give this Black-owned bank every month, we can use those funds and begin to do more for outreach for our community, especially here in the city of New Orleans. So please, whatever you have to contribute, we would greatly appreciate it. Also, for those who are watching right now, if you have not, make sure that you're hitting the like button on anything that comes across your timeline about NNV Network. Make sure you're also hitting the subscribe button for NNV on YouTube, on Instagram, and also on Facebook. And for those who are being touched by COVID, if your family's been impacted, any way, shape, or form, we're offering this prayer line that we've been having since we've been doing this show. Submit your names, as people have been submitting their names, and we have also been praying on their behalf. So thank you all for tuning in, brothers and sisters. We have some very powerful guests that are coming up, and you make sure you're tuning in, inshallah, on next Sunday. We're scheduled to have one of the most Elijah Muhammad's children, brother Rasul Muhammad, will be here. So we thank you all. Make sure you comment in the comment section, and thank you for tuning in. This is your brother Willie Muhammad. Peace.
God came to us to seek and to save that which was lost. He raised a man from among us.
He, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, laid the foundation. What I'm doing is something that comes from him through me, and the thing that he uses in me to do the work is my faith in him and the word that he taught. To produce men and women who wanted to clean up their life and build an independent nation for the glory of God.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps to combat false media. Cash App NNV News.